Ladies and gentlemen, Kamnapanini Maori and greetings. The frigate is one of our key national icons, the national bird of Kiribati. The song we will hear was written in 1978, many years before we knew anything about global warming, climate change, and sea level rise. The story tells of a bird flying the ocean in search of food for its young. On her return, she finds that her homeland has disappeared beneath the waves. This prophecy from the past reminds us of the uncertain future we face as a country and as a people. We're pleased to present the use of Kiribati and the song of the frigate.
Iau ko ko rame ngau men sirive te arana Kiribati komenaya ongopana Kopura ke koe tunarina onna pe Rosi kora ke mei merawa Pananori ko ake amena ikera roa Kopura ke Iau ko ramenga men sirive te arana Kiribati komenaya ongopana hawanene Kopura ke koe tunarina onna pe Rosi kora ke mei merawa Bananori ko ake amena ikera roa Kopura ke Kopura ke koe tunarina onna pe Rosi kora ke mei merawa Pananori ko ake amena ikera roa Me mera ke Kiribati Me mera ke
Thank you for that beautiful video, Mike. It's noon, so I am going to to start the program now. I want to say good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council's program featuring guest speakers, Dr. Mike Roman, Kia Rutherford, Dr. Maria Tiawa Rutherford, Lulu Debois, Ruth Cross, and Baniti Semilota. Thank you to all of you who have joined us online today. I am Sunday Goshit, an ICFRC board member and your host for today's program. The Iowa City Foreign Relations Council wants to acknowledge and thank its annual donors, members, sponsors, and partners for their support. This list includes the Iowa Arts Council through the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs, Humanities Iowa and the National Endowment for the Humanities, the University of Iowa International Programs, Honors Programs and Public Policy Center, the Stanley UI Foundation Support Organization, Midwest One Bank, and Taxes Plus, City Channel 4 for providing online access to Iowa City Foreign Relations Council's program, along with the University of Iowa Library Archives. And before we go any further, I would like to read the Native American Land Acknowledgement. The Iowa City Foreign Relations Council has adopted the Native American Land Acknowledgement prepared for the City of Iowa City's Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission and Human Rights Commission. The Iowa City Foreign Relations Council recognizes that our home community of Iowa City now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The full text of ICFRC's acknowledgement is on its website at icfrc.org. As we get started, I would like to cover some Zoom etiquette tips. This is the time to make sure you know where your video and audio mute on mute buttons are located. You are already muted, so we ask you to please keep your audio turned off for the duration of the presentation, so you do not interrupt the speakers. If you want to keep your video on, that's great, but we ask you that you do your best to not excuse any distracting movements or behaviors. Following our speaker's presentation at about 12:45, we will have a 15-minute Q&A. You'll be able to submit your questions via the chat function. At that time, you have not done so, we invite you to turn on your video. But please keep your audio muted to avoid any background noise. Now, I would like to give some brief introduction of our speakers. And if you want to read their full bios, please go to icrfc.org/program information. Dr. Mike Roman is a former Kiribati Peace Corps volunteer, AmeriCorps, Vista Central College, Pella, Iowa, Fulbright Fellow, ghostwriter, and co-creator of the social media platform Humans of Kiribati. Collaborating with governments, international media, nonprofit organizations, and citizens worldwide, he has spent the last 23 years raising global consciousness on the climate crisis by humanizing climate change from the front lines. Kia Rutherford is president of Fiery Canoe Foundation and a high school student from Scadell, New York. Her efforts to aid the Banaban community initially began in the summer of 2021 when she created a monthly page to aid the Banabans in Fiji during COVID-19. Dr. Maria Tiawa Rutherford is secretary of the Fiery Canoe Foundation. She's a board-certified obstetrician, gynecologist, and assistant professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Weill Cornell Medical Center. Lulu Debois is a filmmaker whose work has spanned several nations including the tribes of Northern California and Washington, Malaysia, Kiribati, Fiji, and Germany. Lulu currently resides in Houston, Texas, producing a feature documentary, Millennium Island, under her production company, Lulu Lens LCC. Ruth M. Cross is the founder of the Tungaru Climate Alliance. She has created community programs and projects to address challenges in Tarawa relating to sanitation, the environment, healthcare, education, and business. The president of Kiribati recently awarded Ruth the Kiribati Order of Merit. Baniti Semilota is currently studying for a Bachelor's of Laws at the University of South Pacific. She founded the first youth-led organization in Kiribati, Tungaru Youth Action, TYA. As president of TYA, Baniti assists this group in empowering local youth. Baniti was crowned Miss Kiribati 2022, using this opportunity to raise awareness on domestic violence and rights of women and children in Kiribati. With that, you would agree with me that we have a team of speakers. Please join me in welcoming this incredible team of speakers who will talk about Earth Day in the Pacific. Mike, I hand over to you.
Great, and thank you so much, Sunday, for all of that warm introduction and introduction of the speakers. Kamnabang Maori and Nisa Bula, and of course, hello to all of you. Warm Pacific greetings from around the world, and thank you for joining the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council and us in hosting this Earth Week presentation, Earth Day in the Pacific, Truce and Activism from the Front Lines. The other presenters and I are excited to share our frontline truce and advocacy with you. But first, let's start with where we're coming from. Our focus today will be on Oceania, or the Pacific region. Most people in the US know about the Kingdom of Hawaii, but there is so much more. Within Oceania, there are 14 independent countries, 11 dependent territories, 3 cultural regions, Micronesia, Melanesia, and of course, Polynesia. Linguistically diverse is this region with hundreds of languages. Its largest, deepest ocean, it's the world's largest and deepest ocean, and it covers 1/3 of the global surface. So it's no wonder that people of Oceania are so connected with the ocean. It's often said that the ocean does not divide, but rather unites the islands to one another. Some of the earliest voyages happened 10,000 years ago. The Vikings of the Sunrise, as they are known, were traversing the Great Pacific long before Europeans discovered that the Earth was round. A great Pacific scholar, an aunt, a sister, and a mentor, Dr. Teresa Toaya, once shared with me her perspective on the ocean and the connection that it has with its people. She said that we sweat and cry salt water so that we know that the ocean is in our blood. Today, we are going to focus on Kiribati and Banaba. So the impact of climate change is what we're going to be targeting. I was first introduced to the islands as a young Peace Corps volunteer. I told my recruiter that I hated hot weather, was allergic to fish, and had severe motion sickness, especially on boats. But things happened a bit differently than I thought they would. I missed my 21st birthday en route to service as we crossed the international dateline, but celebrated with a moimoto, or a coconut, once entering the country. Tarawa is the capital island of the country, coincidentally gaining independence from British around the same time that the phosphate depleted, on July 12, 1979. The country comprises of 3 island chains, the Gilbert Chains, the Phoenix, and the Line Islands. From end to end, the country is roughly the size of the continental United States. but the land area is smaller than the average US city. And being a primarily atoll nation rising just a couple of feet above sea level, Banaba is the only high island in the nation. Despite my stated qualms over dislike for heat, the allergies, and the motion sickness, I fell in love with the people, with the culture, with the country. The jury still remains hung on whether or not the heat played any role in that. Ultimately, my last day of service to the country was the first day of my commitment to the nation. I did a TED Talk a few years ago, and this is what I shared.
Nakon Kiribati, ay wabui tiririgi, mentatay arismuan kaya sa buyay. Mennomantay, nikiraki angim, ay kabuebue mentoro. Hindi na nun ang mabue ni Merawa, ari bru menkirin, ari apon kamengingay, niniyay, kapataw ni kapene, awiyang uro o tamneo. Mentepong ayo, iya meaku ibukim. Meaku nano, pakain taon nape, anang akiatay ko. Tekno rape, menanawaki pitakin taon nape, mepainan ako, anang akinora, sikiroim, amatatay o amata. O katim, kakanatom, nregirom ni kapene pai, ari kunan nang ation nape, o ari yonari. Anakanta ninga, o nanun tion nape, pa kan kakaya tukin tewaki, ari sringakia pai nako, akiye meawya, ikapunganakin tesua, terapakaw ipukin de meaw o tion nape, o ay temani. Temani, ari puniputon, tekira waki ni kaupain tion nape, o tangiran riki, ari yona, o tenan wayu, ari apunmusira, na kontetay ayu. Pain rapakaw, aki nakaitaray waki kay, apun rangire may rikira kaya, ni kuna ni katuki waki, ay apun sandiki. Ikakwawa, patiatatay yo mata, punsita kaway, ni kakayan tirek. Spere ni kuna, ni pisina nura, na kontenan wanga. Spere ni kuna, nuorian tayo nako, pati nanwanga, puningaya, arena pena tipitaki, arena riki, pati puto ka na kontiyan nape, ari castis roy. Ari tinano nakirawakin kaupain tiyan nape, takay riribay, o tinano nun, apun penen dunya kimia, tinano nanganga, titangira, o tukukuray. Nakontiyan nape, punyay au kaway rom, punyay au kawa ipunirora. Yayaw kowa ti atatay o mata. Kana ko na ni pitaki ti nape me paina na ay ngaira nape sipun ko na.
So much of what is being done in Kiribati today, yesterday, and for the future could not be possible without amazing people. As Sunday introduced these two women, they're amazing in their own rights, and they have done so much for the nation. We're going to hear from Ruth Cross and from Benice Semilota, Benice. And we're going to start off their presentation with a video that we conducted and did for Rotary International Conference last year in 2022.
I like to call Kiribati the world's best kept secret. This unknown paradise is one of the most remote nations on the planet. Our culture is woven of the intricate tapestries of Pacific folklore, places of peace, love, and true happiness. Kiribati is a small island nation consisting of 33 coral atolls. We are located where the Equator and the international dateline intersect, in the heart of the Pacific. We are the only country that lies in all four hemispheres, straddling the international dateline. We were the first to enter the millennium and are the first country to welcome each new day. I like to say that we are the center of the universe because time starts in Kiribati. Our nation is divided into three groups: the Gilbert Islands, Line Islands, and Phoenix Islands. Our magical islands are scattered over 3.5 million kilometers of the Central Pacific Ocean. We are the second largest ocean state in the world. Our total land area if you were to put all 33 islands together, is less than half the size of Houston at just over 700 square kilometers. Perhaps this was always our destiny as frontliners, to be the first to face climate change. Those tiny changes in the beautifully complex system of our planet, like the flapping of a butterfly's wings, now threaten our way of life. Our lands are only 1.5 meters above sea level. Our freshwater lens is so shallow. Saltwater intrusion has already crept into our lives. Our crops are failing and our people are adapting. Prolonged droughts and heavier rain, powerful king tides, coastal erosion, an unprecedented cyclone, changes to our marine ecosystem where shellfish no longer thrive abundantly. Everything has changed. Kiribati is predicted to vanish from this planet. Our way of life is threatened by the very ocean that has sustained our existence for thousands of years. But we feel so blessed. Because God has protected and sheltered us for so long, in this hidden and secret paradise where no one even knows our real name, we are Tungaru, which means we gather in joy. When we say hello, it's not hello. We greet you with a blessing of well-being. And when we say goodbye, we don't say goodbye. We say, we'll see you. And so we're ready for what the future brings. Because Te Tungaru does not mean we belong to our nation. It means that we are our nation.
Thanks for that, Mike. Is that where I jump in or Bernice jumps in? There we go.
Both of you can. Bernice, if you want to speak first, go ahead. I think we have you on the water projects, Ruth.
Great, thank you.
So it's 5 a.m. in Kiribati right now, tomorrow. Bernice, are you there?
Hey, I actually can't see Bernice. I think she might have dropped out. So, yeah. She was there a moment ago.
Oh, I see her.
I think she's talking, but she has a problem with probably the speakers.
Oh.
Yeah, she's talking, but we can't hear her.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, how about now?
Perfect, we got you.
Okay, I'm so sorry for that. It's early here in the morning. It's 5 o'clock, 5:20 at the moment. Anyways, I would like to greet you all with my own mother tongue, with our own mother tongue. My name is Bernice. It's spelled out as Baniti, in which the TI is pronounced as S, and that's why my name is Bernice, and Kiribati is pronounced as Kiribati. And so, sorry for starting out a bit late. My heart was just pumping just after seeing all of the 2 videos. My heart started moving. I just realized that this is what our country, my country, is facing at the moment. And so to any Pacific Islander out there, the ocean is their home. And for me, I grew up with the house next to the sea with the waves crashing as our lullaby, and to sleep so soundly only to wake up by the touch of a crab crawling over your leg. Now that is something that you experience in Kiribati. To instantly going for a bath at the sea when it gets really hot, only then to have your mother and your grandmother waiting at the surface, calling you over because it's too hot. Why are you out at the sea? And so every day after school, we'd push each other, trying to climb the tree that holds our swing, only to get on and fall in the ants of the beach sands. Surfing in my country, our definition of surfing is basically just holding on to a piece of tree or big material while following the flow of the big waves. Life in Kiribati, it's simple. The ocean is a good gathering place for friends, families to have a good time and to get rid of all the stress. It brings everyone together. And I am sad to know that it is only sad that the end of this identity, it's predicted to be none other than the ocean itself. I honestly still can't grasp the idea that years from now on, Kiribati is predicted to be historically known as the country under the sea. And this is something that I am sad and I do not agree with, because Kiribati is my home. It's a home that I do not wish to leave. It's where I grew up in. We have our cultures. It sets us aside from other countries. And to know that climate change is real, it is affecting my people. It is affecting my home. It is affecting my country, and it is affecting the lives of our future generation. We are currently facing the realities of climate change as of this moment. We are not facing it in the future. My country, they're facing it right now. And so I have seen firsthand the impacts of climate change. Our crops have died, land space for our people have left them to live with the flood, and even worse, they fled their home to look for a new land area as their home has now been taken by the sea. The beach that used to hold our favorite tree to swing has now fallen due to erosion. And what is even more scary is imagining not having a place to go home to in the near future. Our identities as Kiribati is at risk. Our culture that we so love and cherish to never fade may eventually be a story. Our Kiribati may eventually be a story. And that is how we brought together and capacitate our youth in Kiribati to know about climate change so that they'll be the voice of our people, our community. They'll be the ones to do all the work to come up with innovative solutions to help our people. And so let me introduce to you Tungaru Youth Action. As you can see in the slide over here, Tungaru Youth Action, it's a home for all the youth in Kiribati. And a home for us, it's where you nurture your children. It's where you teach your children behaviors, the cultures, everything, manners. And so that is why we refer to Tungaru Youth Action as a home for all the Kiribati youth, because this is where we hope to nurture and teach our young people in Kiribati, be a home for them so that they know that this is a place for them to elevate their skills, discover their potential, and let them be future leaders. I'll just quickly introduce Tungaru Youth Action so that all of you may know. Tungaru Youth Action is the first youth-led organization in Kiribati. It strives to empower the next generation by offering them a range of resources and support, from mentorship to research and vocational training. We aim to equip our youth in Kiribati with the tools that they need to reach their full potential and develop important skills. At the heart of our efforts are programs and initiatives led by passionate young leaders who are committed to making a difference. And I am happy to say that when we first started Tungaru Youth Action, it was only just 5 of us, 5 of our youth. And when our youth heard about Tungaru Youth Action, they came up to us asking us how to register and all, because this is something that they've been waiting for. All of our youth in Kiribati, they have potential, but they just need a specific body that will cater their potential, elevate those skills, and be a home for them. And so when we started Tungaru Youth Action, it was only 5 young people, but then now it has gone up to 67 young people in Kiribati, who are the voice of Kiribati. Our ultimate goal is to see our Kiribati youth become critical thinkers, innovative problem solvers, effective communicators, and confident leaders. And we believe by fostering these qualities at a young age, we sincerely believe that our youth will be well equipped to shape a brighter future, not just for themselves, but for their family, communities, and the world around them. And that's all that I can share about Tungaru Youth Action. We have a lot of activities that you can see from the slide. We launched Tungaru Youth Action on 15th of October, where we had an outreach to youth leaders and prospective youth of different schools and organizations. And this is where our registration or our membership started growing. And in 2022, one of our Tungaru Youth representatives was invited to the COP27, it's the United Nations Climate Change Conference, as the youth representative to be the voice of our youth. Not just that, but as we started growing and exposing our youth to regional and international organizations, we are proud to say that we have been selected, or 3 of our members have been selected as ambassadors of Pacific Australia Youth Alliance. In the year of 2023, this year, we kickstarted off 2023 by doing a coastal cleanup at Anano Causeway in collaboration with other local organizations such as Mama Pricing Pimpa, KWIM, Clay Special Solutions, and the Ministry of Environment. What I can say is an exciting news is that we have just received our first donation or sponsor from Global Green Grants Fund, to which we've already started our first youth training, which is building capacity on climate change for youth by youth. And so this training, it helps to build the capacity of the Kiribati youth in Kiribati to know about climate change. We know that a lot of our youth, they don't really know about climate change. They may think, for youth that may have never been out to overseas, they consider climate change as something that's happening as well to other countries, that this is normal. And so this training, we are aiming to capacitate our youth to know that climate change, it's not normal. It's something we need to fight for our country. We need to start coming up with solutions. They need to know what is happening. They need to protect their waters, monitor the coastal erosions and food security. And perhaps with these knowledge and skills that have been provided by them during this training, they will be able to come up with new innovative solutions using our local resources. And that is our hope for our youth, to know about climate change, to know what is happening around their communities so that they can be the voice. They will take the initiatives to help their people. And yes, I believe that's what I can share about Tungaru Youth Action. If you do have any questions, you can just email me or research my name. I'm everywhere in Kiribati, so you can just come up to me and I'll tell you more about Tungaru Youth Action or everything about the culture, because our culture is beautiful as well. And yes, that's about it, everyone.
Thank you so much, Benny's. Thank you so much. It's great to hear the youth, and we need to hear the youth. I want to bring you to DC. All right, moving on to Ruth, water security projects.
Yes. Thanks, Mike, and thanks again, Bannies. And it really is true. You will see Bannies everywhere. In fact, when you arrive in Kiribati, the first billboard you see will be Bannies' face saying hello, Kiribati, from advertising Vodafone. So it's all about communications as well. So thank you for that, as well as Mike for your presentation, and good afternoon and good morning and Gamnadenin Maori to everybody that's here with us today. Normally when we say Gamnadenin Maori, this is our blessing, and we say hello, and you're meant to say it back to us and say Maori but we're all online, so we're letting you off the hook, and Bernice is letting you off the hook as well. But I'm sure that your presence here is definitely validating the fact that we're all wishing each other some well-being. Before I jump into my presentation, which is to focus on the adaptation measures, I thought I'd like to take some time to share as well, a couple of my favorite things about being from Kiribati. And, and as Mike shared during his presentation, there are some really beautiful and deep values that we have here in the islands that as we go out into the world, we start to realize just how precious they are. And in Kiribati, it's that real sense of community connection, right? And where even though we don't know each other, we actually all assume that we do know each other, right? So if you're walking along in Kiribati, people are always making eye connection. Oh, they're always they're always looking at you because we're expecting to acknowledge each other, right? So you'll be walking down the street, and if you pass someone, you'll see them and you'll talk to them. You'll be like, good morning, or you'll nod your head. If you don't say good morning or actually talk to them, you'll just nod your head to say hello. But more often than not, you'll be like, hi, where are you going? Are you on your way there or on your way back? So growing up, whenever I'd go to the shops, it would actually take me quite a while to get there, because usually you're passing people's homes along the way, and they'll be like, oh, good morning, are you going to the shops? Yes, I'm going to the shops. Oh, okay, why don't you stop and have a drink? Or in Kiribati they say, so you can say you're in a rush, but now and then you have to stop and talk to them. So we're early risers in Kiribati, and maybe part of the reason is because we know that whenever we're going to head somewhere, we're going to be stopping and talking a lot on the way. So and that thing is what gives us that really strong sense of community and strong sense of human connection to each other. And funnily enough, when I travel overseas, I still kind of do that. I'm still walking down the street and I'm still looking at people and I'm still smiling. And most of the time they're still smiling back, but they're probably looking at me going, who's this weirdo, like walking around with a big smile on her face, like trying to nod her head and connect with us. But as I mentioned during our earlier video, when we say we're from Kiribati, we don't say we're Kiribatis or Kiribatian or anything like that. We say we are Kiribati, and that kind of translates to I am Kiribati. So therefore, I take it with me when I'm overseas, and I basically say, well, I'm still Kiribati no matter where I go. So I take those values with me, and I'm okay with people thinking that I'm a weirdo, smiling at them all the time on the street. Now, what I'm going to do in my presentation is just take you into I guess the adaptation measures. As Bernice mentioned earlier, we're already living with the impacts of climate change. And you would have noticed in the video, when you're a tiny coral atoll, these are, basically very thin strips of land, only 1.5 meters above sea level. And what you see in this photo is just, I guess, what our geology looks like. And you can see from that where we have, this very thin brackish transitional layer which is your salt water. And then above that is our freshwater lens. And then of course, above that is our, 1 or 1.5 meters of precious land, right? And so you can see from that freshwater lens that we have is very fragile. And what we're experiencing now, we have 33 islands altogether, and 21 of those islands are inhabited. Our main capital island, which is South Tarawa, is basically one of the longest islands out of all, and that's why it became our capital, because it's the longest. And what it is it's about 3 or 4 coral atolls that have been joined together by causeways to make our great big capital city of 24 kilometers long, right? Now that we have what's called PUB, which is mandated to take care of the water supply on South Tarawa. So we have a desalination system that's being built, but we already have saltwater intrusion on South Tarawa, and so we're working to supply, or the government's working to supply fresh water to the main island, and that's great. However, we've got 20 other inhabited outer islands who are also experiencing, much smaller than South Tarawa, who are also experiencing this saltwater intrusion. So if you could go to the next slide, Mike. And so with those outer islands, those are the big projects that are currently underway, and we're working to access climate finance mechanisms, because you can imagine that these outer islands, which are have populations of anywhere from hundreds of people on really small islets to a couple of maybe 2,000 to 6,000 people on bigger outer islands. So desalination or water solutions to provide water for people on the outer islands, you can imagine, is very expensive and a very tricky process, because if you think of how isolated Kiribati is, nestled in its 3 million kilometers of ocean, then you have to imagine how even further isolated those islands are, which are spread out along those 3 million kilometers of ocean. And then you consider the process of trying to bring water solutions to them, which, for the outer islands look like desalination systems, right? So what I wanted to share with you was just a couple of the two solutions that we have in Kiribati. One of them is we've got community level solutions, which are carousel systems. And those systems are really simple, but they pull water from wells. So we've got the wells that I guess for a long time have sustained communities accessing that water lens, but now that they have saltwater intrusion, they still use that water for bathing and showering, but obviously they need clean water to drink. So what these carousel systems do is they actually pull water, and one of those panels will produce about 18 liters of fresh water a day. Now, on the basis that people need about 25 liters of fresh water per person, or clean water, we're kind of watering that down, for want of a better word, and we're saying maybe 25 liters of fresh water per household, right, for their cooking and drinking purposes, and then they can still use well water for everything else. Now, as an island level solution, we've just started a project at the moment, which is introducing Suez desalination systems. And Suez is a leading supplier in the world. They have solutions all over the Pacific, including Tuvalu, which is very similar to the landscape and context in Kiribati. And those solutions will ultimately be providing, fresh water for the whole outer island. And it is quite, it did make me laugh on the initial scoping trips when we were talking about introducing these systems, which are quite expensive. And you try to imagine the logistics and planning of because we're going to be putting these systems on, for some of the islands, they're going to be going on to like rafts and being pushed very carefully over the lagoon or over the ocean to get to these islets, these pieces of equipment that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then it's going to be coming with like rainwater harvesting systems like tanks and then the delivery mechanisms like water trucks. And this is going to cost hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars. And guess what? We're doing this for like communities of a couple of hundred people. And I still remember the face of the person that was like, okay, so how many people live on this islet? And we're talking about an islet like Abesuku. And they were like, oh, 200. And they were like, oh, right. But you know what? This is climate change, and protecting and allowing people who have lived in places for, hundreds of years, the ability to continue, not only for them and their future generations, means that these are the lengths that we do have to go to in order to help them adapt to the impacts of climate change. Because obviously, if it wasn't for that, then people would be living content and undisrupted and living their best lives in these beautiful little islets that they live on. So that was really what I wanted to take you into. This is only one layer of the type of solutions that are needed in places in rural communities that are struggling with the impacts of climate change. And, there's a whole range of them. But what we do know is that fresh water is needed for not just for people to drink, but it's also needed for plants. because what we will see, what's already happening now is going to is just going to worsen into the future, is the vegetation on these islands are no longer producing as much fruit as they used to because of water scarcity in the ground. What we're starting to see are the coconut trees are starting to die, breadfruit trees are starting to die, and in soil in countries like Kiribati, it's already difficult for produce to grow because we are talking about coral atolls, right? But then there are plants that are used to this kind of climate and this kind of land, and that's taro, breadfruit, and coconut trees. These are very hardy plants and crops that can grow anywhere in Kiribati. But what we're starting to see, because the taro pits are dug into the land and they usually grow in that water lens, but right now taro is starting to not be able to be grown because, again, those taro pits are contaminated. So, it's going to become increasingly complex over the years, and of course we don't know what we're looking at 30, 50, 60 years from now. However, we still need to do whatever it is that we can and can do, and those are the sorts of projects that are currently underway. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you, and like the others, I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have at the end of the presentation. But I'll turn the time back over to you, Mike. But I just want to say another thank you to everyone that's a part of this gathering and for your care and concern.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Thank you so much, Benice. We're going to move on to the Fiery Canoe Foundation. Kea Rutherford and Dr. Maria Ewa Rutherford are presenting. We have a recorded message from Kea to start off.
Maori and Bula, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kea Rutherford, and I'm the president of the Fiery Canoe Foundation, an organization committed to achieving our mission of supporting, safeguarding, and promoting Bonoban well-being, culture, and heritage. Located in the Pacific near the equator, Bonoba, also known as Ocean Island, is part of the Republic of Kiribati. It is a small raised coral atoll with a land area of approximately 6 square kilometers or 2.5 square miles. Bonoba is one of the world's most important phosphate-rich islands, along with Nauru, Makatea in French Polynesia, and Engar in Palau. After Bonoba was sustainably inhabited for over 2,000 years, the British annexed the island in 1900. A rushed agreement did not make clear the long-term environmental impacts of phosphate mining to the Bonoban people. It granted the Pacific Islands Company a 999-year lease for an annual fee of £50, about £4,200 in today's money. The result of this agreement was that between 1900 and 1979, nearly all of Bonoba's original surface was removed. Under the direction of the British Phosphate Commissioners, the BPC, of Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, the land became uninhabitable. Bonobans received minimal royalties or other benefits from the mining operations. Bonoban compensation has been estimated at less than 0.1% of profit generated for agricultural farming, shipping, and manufacturing businesses supported by the BPC in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. Instead, Bonoban land was sacrificed to run the Gilbert and Ellis Islands colony and supply a critical input for a global superphosphate fertilizer and food supply chain. Those who experienced the effects of mining recall Bonoba's natural landscape with sorrow. Riddled with limestone pinnacles, the island no longer has an adequate supply of fresh drinking water and has lost much of its pandanus, coconuts, almond, and other food sources. Bonobans have attempted to obtain reparations from the British Phosphate Commission and the 3 countries responsible for mining, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. But to date, these efforts have been unsuccessful. Japan targeted Bonoba for its mines during World War II and BPC employees, but not many of the Bonoban people were evacuated when Japanese forces invaded the island. These occupiers established a brutal rule that saw many Bonobans perish from starvation or torture. Mining resumed with the end of the war. To expedite phosphate extraction and accommodate the island's decreasing ability to support life, the British colonial government relocated most of the Bonabin population to Rambi Island in Fiji. The Bonabins lost many elders and holders of customary knowledge and tradition during mining and the war, but they did their best to rebuild their culture in Fiji. Several families now have also migrated to Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand, or the US. Rambi has no central electricity supply and limited infrastructure, health, financial, and community facilities. Nevertheless, there is a vibrant and creative community across 4 villages who, with their families abroad, maintain their care for and connection to their ancestral island that still awaits justice and proper rehabilitation. My grandfather was among the many Bonabins forced to relocate to Fiji with his family. Raised on Rambi, my kaka became the first Bonabin to obtain a Fiji government scholarship, which he used to study at the University of Hawaii and meet my grandmother. My kaka spent 30 years in the Fiji Civil Service, then retired to become the chairman of the Rambi Council of Leaders for a time. My grandfather's full name is Tabaki Tewa Tewa, after his father, Tewa, as Bonabin sons take their father's first names as their last. In Kiribati language, the name Tewa translates to mean fiery canoe, a translation my Aunt Teresia took great inspiration from in her work in poetry as a Pacific Studies scholar. In 2017, she passed away due to pancreatic cancer, so in memory of her and inspired by my kaka, I decided to launch my own advocacy for the Bonabin community. We initially began by conducting a Fundly campaign that supported COVID-19 relief for Bonabin communities. After speaking with Dr. Satendra Prasad, however, we decided to make our primary focus the Bonabin community. In order to do this, we founded the Fiery Canoe Foundation, today a 501c3 certified nonprofit organization. Since our launch, we have raised over $23,000 for the Bonabin cause. We have worked with activists and aid workers in Fiji to solicit projects consistent with our mission of supporting Bonabin culture, well-being, and heritage. The first project we funded was dedicated to empowering Bonabin and Rambian youths through sports. Financial support for youth programs has decreased dramatically in recent years, leading to increased rates of substance abuse in Bonabin and Rambian youths. The Fiery Canoe Foundation donated 9,500 Fiji dollars to support the purchase of sporting equipment, provide coaching fees and prizes, and revive traditional sports like weaving and coconut husking for the annual December 15th celebration, which was the day the Bonabins were relocated to Fiji. The second project we funded helped to revive the defunct Bonabin Cultural Dancing Group in order to promote awareness and appreciation for Bonabin culture. Lack of support for maintaining this group could result in the extinction of Bonabin dance, especially since financial constraints prevent the Rambi Council of Leaders from stationing cultural teachers in all of the schools on Rambi. The Fiery Canoe Foundation donated 4,360 Fiji dollars to provide a drum kit, ukulele, semi-acoustic guitar, transport, stipend, and promotional materials for all teachers, along with food and transport. Former members have also volunteered their time to recruit new members and continue dancing lessons and costume making. This project helped to revitalize Bonabin dance with the hope to strengthen it in order to expand its programs to all of the schools on Rambi. By supporting the Bonabin people and helping them tell their stories, the Fiery Canoe Foundation hopes to have a positive impact on Bonaba, for the Bonabin people in Rambi and far beyond our home islands to the rest of the world. What happened on Bonaba is playing out on a global scale right now. Extraction-based mining, native habitat destruction, and uncontrolled carbon emissions have the potential to destroy the Earth's ability to support life. In a cruel twist of fate, Bonaba and its neighboring Pacific islands in the Republic of Kiribati will be the first lands to be lost to the rising sea levels, thereby being victimized twice. Already, high tides flood the first floor of the hospital in Tarawa, with the largest towns in Kiribati. Patients and equipment must be relocated and power outages are common. The most pressing issue on Rambi is currently water. There is no accessible clean water. Many people are drinking dirty water and getting diseases with little access to adequate healthcare facilities. Another major project is the funding of educational programs. The Bonobans need to be educated on the dangers of phosphate mining and agriculture's impact on climate change so that the mistakes of the past may not be repeated. They need to be educated on human interaction with the environment and how best we may help Bonobo and Rambi. Global education and spreading awareness throughout Australia, New Zealand, and the United States is also a major goal of the Fiery Canoe Foundation. To help spread awareness of the Bonoban story and support the Fiery Canoe Foundation, please visit our website at fierycanoefoundation.org and check out our Instagram at Fiery Canoe Foundation. To learn more, check out Project Bonobo at projectbonobo.com. One way that we are trying to spread the word is by bringing this multimedia museum exhibit by Katarina Tewa to museums around the world. Katarina Tewa is a professor of Pacific Studies in the School of Culture, History, Language at the Australian National University in Canberra. Project Bonobo is coming to the Bishop Museum in Honolulu this upcoming November to February, so please check it out if you're in Honolulu during this time.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation. And first time I saw it, I was floored. You did an amazing job. Now, Dr. Dewa Rutherford, if you're in, do you want to say a couple of words?
Yes,
There you are.
thank you. Bulavinaka, Kamna Maori. First, I just wanted to say thank you to the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council, and thank you to Dr. Mike Roman for putting together this panel and for inviting the Fiery Canoe Foundation to participate. We're very grateful to be able to share our story with a wider audience. And as my daughter Kaya mentioned, one of our mission is not only to raise funds and help various projects, both on Rambi and Bonobo, but we also want to bring our story to a wider group. In the US, people have really heard of Kiribati. So when I say Kiribati and then I spell it out and I say, well, it's actually written Kiribati, but it's pronounced Kiribati. And then they go, oh, yes, I've seen it. I assumed it was called Kiribati, so I didn't really know what you were talking about. So it's a nice opportunity for us to tell the story to a wider group of people. So we're very grateful for that opportunity. I was born and raised in Fiji, along with my two sisters who were very big climate activists, climate warriors. And I've lived in New York for 25 years. And so we started the Fiery Canoe Foundation not long ago, November of 2021. And so we have many, many exciting projects planned. But as my daughter Kaya said, please, if you'd like to learn more, you can visit our website and follow us on Instagram. And very excited to be part of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dewa Rutherford. And yeah, you guys did an amazing job. And I am going to call it our last presentation. Lulu DeBoer, filmmaker.
I loved you since before I can remember. A love that was pure. The love of living, the love of family, the love of home. But we were separated, and I grew up far, far away in the oil heart of Texas. But you lingered still in the songs of my grandmother, illuminating the painful voids of my memory. After college, I found myself in the arms of Silicon Valley, infatuated with the romantic promise it would break digital money.
Right now, the eyes of the world are on Kiribati. And have a good look at this island, because you won't be able to see it for much longer. We're told 30 years' time, Millennium Island will simply not exist anymore.
I heard you were dying, and I knew I had to come back to you.
The first part of the world to enter the new millennium.
That makes me really proud that you're good. You were drowning and dying of thirst at the same time.
What all the changes here happening in Kiribati is climate change, you know.
But I didn't fully understand your problems until I adapted to you completely. And surely enough, the world I left behind left me. I just got broken up by Stop broken up. I'm gonna cry, okay?
Okay, right. Just focus on your work.
After a break, sometimes all you can do is work to rebuild. And I did forget myself into the sea of your soul. But that same sea that sustains you keeps rising and rising to break down your walls. And I didn't know how much longer this love could last against the crashing onslaught of denial.
Global warming itself is a crock of bull, but I am sympathetic to the oil industry. It would be a bunch of animals living in caves or tropical islands.
It seemed like it was us against the world, and we were doomed. But the warrior blood in my ancestor burns in me, refusing to give up. And I was not alone.
So we fight to stay in our country. This morning, all these members of our community wake up for mango planting. So mangrove growing is part of the adaptation to protect the coast from eroding away. It's our home. We have to protect it.
But all the mangroves in the world still can't protect you from storms. Or worse, droughts.
Through the foundation, I can provide sustainable energy to run those things, but at a very affordable rate.
Good. The solar project.
Oh, okay. Me and you go to the list. I don't worry, we solve this together.
But is it all too little too late? Have I loved you? Only to you. A tiny island in a vast void, home to everything I've ever known. But if we, your humanity, fail, if I fail to save you, just remember, I loved you.
Lulu?
Hi everyone, Gambening Maori. And everybody says Maori back.
Maori.
Thank you guys so much for having me on this panel and everyone for all the hard work they're doing. Climate change is a really intersectional problem, so it really takes everyone from the grassroots activists, media people, everybody who's on the ground doing water projects. And yeah, I'm just so honored to be here, and I'm so happy that the movement is going forward and there's such talented people from Kiribati and who have been touched by Kiribati on board to do some problem solving. Yeah. So I wanted to say thank you again. If you guys have some questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
I was just wondering, what stage is Millennium Island in?
So I have a 200-hour-long assembly cut. And so now I'm doing the very fun part of fundraising for post-production funding. So that's going to be a lot of grant writing and a lot of, I'm trying to find private funding just because that goes a lot quicker. So I'll be doing a lot of networking and talking to people on that side.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lulu. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your work. It is 2 o'clock. We do have one more thing. Is it all right if I continue with it? It's what's happening here in the United States and what I've been working on for years, and we will be reintroducing it in the House of Representatives and the Senate come Earth Day.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
All right. So the very, very last portion, I know I've said this.
My name is Kwaoni Yotita, and I'm from the beautiful islands of Kiribati. I think everyone that come over to New Zealand, migrate from the islands, they should be treated fairly. Doesn't matter where you're from or who you are. I built a house and I lived in that house with my family. We had a well right next to it, which is our main water supply. We use it for shower, for drink, and over the years it's becoming salty, and now it's contaminated. We just can't use it for those purposes. I made the decision to move to New Zealand back in 2009. I ran away from climate change with my family, but I'm not surrendering. I'm here to fight climate change. I'm here to help. People from Kiribati, we're self-reliant. We rely on ourselves, and we build our own house, we build our own canoe to go out fishing. We fish with our own hands, and that's what keeps me going in the building industry. Just seeing that result that you done with your own hands. You build something out of nothing with your own hands, your own knowledge, and you see the results at the end of the day, and that's really motivates me. There's a lot of our boys, our men out there working as construction workers. They could get the opportunity to further their studies and become qualified builders or carpenters to earn more. I've talked with a few boys, and they said their employers haven't given them that opportunity to study, because becoming an apprentice, you need approval from your employer. In some ways, they've been exploited. To avoid this kind of situation to happen to the people migrating to New Zealand, is seek help from your community, from the government. There's a lot of help out there.
So what his story brings up is the idea of climate-induced migration. Now, when we talk about this, you hear the words climate refugee, but that's not an actual legal definition. That is what is thrown around in the media. But when we look at the definition of a refugee, in 1951, the Convention of Refugees, in 1967, the Convention Protocol states that a refugee is someone who demonstrates that they were persecuted or fear of persecution due to a set of things: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. When it was created, the convention was created, there was no idea of climate being part of those criteria. So in 2019, Representative Nadia Velasquez, Democrat of New York, I believe, District 7, Manhattan, Dr. Dawa Rutherford, she might be your representative. I've been working with her office pretty tightly on this Climate Displaced Persons Act. It was introduced in 2019, the first of its kind, aimed at addressing the growing effect of climate change on human migration. The bill would create formal protections for individuals forcibly displaced by climate change or climate-induced disruptions, such as sea level rise, glacial outbursts, floods, desertification, or fires. The legislation would create a humanitarian program separate from the U.S. refugee admissions program that would admit at least up to 50,000 displaced persons in the first year of enactment, allowing them to access resettlement opportunities. And Vasquez quoted in saying, America would continue to stand tall as a haven for immigrants. This legislation would not only reaffirm our nation's longstanding role as a home to those fleeing conflicts and disasters, but also update and reflect the changes to our world brought on by climate change. Like again, it's been introduced in the 116th, 117th Congress. Co-sponsorship has been relatively low, looking at around 10 to 14, 15 co-sponsors in the House and 5 to 7 in the Senate. It will be reintroduced on Earth Day for the 118th Congress. So this brings us to the conclusion. What can you do? What kind of action can you do? You've heard the stories, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the films. Well, there's donate. You can always make a donation. There are many causes to donate to, whether it be the Fiery Canoe Foundation. A link was posted in the chat, more to follow in the email. Countering climate change brings with conversions that cultivate a transformational confluence of mind and heart, leading to just recoveries for all. It's not just about the money, but it is about the human heart, the human spirit. Like you heard from our panelists, all of them, for us, climate change is real. It's happening now. And a just recovery is possible, but we need your help. We ask that you share our stories, speak up, get politically active, vote if you can. Our future is your future. There is a way forward for everyone, with everyone. And I believe in humanity, I believe in you, and I believe in us. If the climate can change, so can we, and I state so must we. On behalf of all presenters, Kambasandrapa Vinakavakalevu, and thank you so much. Presenters, you.
Okay.
You did an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Mike.
And thank you, each of you, for your excellent presentation. Unfortunately, we are just above time, and so I would urge that whoever has any questions, I'm sure that the presenters will be very, very willing to answer questions. Please send your questions, and we'll be able to forward them to Mike and the team. We would like to thank the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council. Would like to thank its members and donors for their support. And if you'd like to join the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council and make a gift to support its programs, please go to ICFRC.org. This was ICFRC 13th program for the spring semester. And our next program, which will be our last for the semester, is next week, Wednesday at noon, Central Time via Zoom. If those of you who are in Kiribati, since you are early risers, you can still join us. The program would feature speaker Dr. Numvi Wallace Gwaibi, who would speak on armed conflict and peace in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon. We hope that you'll be able to join us then. Honestly, thank you all so much for joining us today. And I would like to, I don't know, Peter, do you want to say the last word as ED? Because I think this is a beautiful session. It's amazing, the information that we have gotten today. I'm very, very impressed with the work that everyone here is doing.
I could not agree more, Sunday. I have been to many ICFRC programs. I've been a part of, or an audience member for, a student for many sessions on internationally focused topics. This was by far one of the best I have ever seen. And not only are you sharing with us and hopefully be creating greater awareness for the climate crisis, the climate imperative that faces Kiribati right now, but you are all doing such incredible work in your individual ways on behalf of your beloved country. It humbles me, and I'm grateful to all of you for taking the time to share your stories with us. And I fully intend on, once we have this full recording, on sharing it as widely as I can so that we can amplify everything that you have shared with us. I could not take more seriously the climate crisis, and you have layered it in such important and in meaningful ways. I thank you, each one of you, for taking the time. Yes, we are over time, so we don't have time for questions. But if folks do have questions, please forward them to Iowa City Foreign Relations Council, ICFRC@icfrc.org. I will make sure that your questions get to our speakers. Incredible presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and with that, I'd just like to say that we are adjourned, and have a beautiful day. Thank you.